The episode opens with the aftermath of the previous one, with Emma, in a state of shock, walking away as Will's mother comes home to see her son's head split in two. Soon after, Emma is in the police station answering questions, later at her therapist, who is prescribing some antidepressants, and finally back home listening to her father's tape she found at the bowling alley. Noah pays a visit to Jake, who is unconscious. Brooke explains how he's lucky to be alive and goes off to talk to the doctor. Noah finally confesses that he was the one who tagged Jake's truck when Jake regains consciousness, asking if they all made it alive. Noah is not sure how to answer his question. Jake starts speculating that Emma and Will are probably getting all cozy with each other when Brooke returns. With Noah's silence, Jake picks up that something is wrong and asks about Will, when Brooke starts crying and tells him all he needs to know. Despite the harrowing experience, Emma tries to act normal as she returns to school, with her mom trying to tell her it will take some time to recover from what she's been through, but Emma still goes to school anyway. Meanwhile, Piper approaches the sheriff with the video of the mayor, showing him dragging a body into his house, and she explains the whole blackmail situation down to what happened to her and Will at the warehouse. Piper is now fearing for her life. She would rather the police capture the killer than make a podcast about it, and she wants no one else to die. Emma shows up at school with eyes glued to her when Noah and Audrey see her, who weren't expecting to see her today. Emma tries to play it cool, but they sense she's barely hanging on. Her composure crumbles when she sees Will's locker adorned with heartfelt notes and pictures. As Piper departs from the police station, Brooke anxiously awaits news regarding her father's potential arrest. Piper reassures her that, based on the incriminating video evidence, it's highly likely that her father will be apprehended. Piper tells her it was the right thing for her to expose the truth, even though Brooke feels bad about everything. Noah and Audrey talk about how convenient it was for Mr. Branson to be out when the killer attacked them at the bowling alley, and think he might know they know his secret. Sheriff Hudson confronts the mayor, who insists on speaking to Brooke before revealing the truth. Brooke, in turn, refuses to talk until she contacts her mother. Hudson provides her with the number and reassures her that her mother is waiting for her call. Brooke finally gets to talk to her mother and is relieved that she's okay. Back at school, Kieran comforts Emma with a hug, saying he is there for her as she walks away. Emma heads to the bathroom, trying to take her medication, when she has a hallucination of Will. The sheriff tells Maggie the whole mayor situation feels like a distraction, and he also investigated Emma's father, who had disappeared 3 weeks prior, around the time Maggie received the heart package. Emma warns Hudson not to interfere with the killer's torment of her since it puts everyone she cares about at risk. Emma's hallucinations intensify as she sees Will again clenching a beating heart until she runs into Kieran, who pulls her back to reality. Kieran tries to support Emma, but she is scared that if they get close, the killer will target him next, and she doesn't want to lose him. At work, Piper talks to Emma, and when Emma reveals that maybe if she gave herself up, the killings would stop, Piper encourages her to not let the killer win, and that she comes from survivors like her mom and dad. Hudson visits Maggie, saying Emma's dad's credit cards were used in the next town over, and if he contacts her or Emma to let him know. Emma had another hallucination at work, so she checked into the hospital. Shortly after her mother leaves, Emma's father appears, attempting to apologize for his absence and the disturbing content on the tape. However, Emma is not ready to forgive him or listen to him. She gets fed up with her father and tells him to leave her alone, which he does. The next morning, Piper stops to see how Emma is doing. Emma tells her about her dad and how she told him to leave her alone. Piper tells her she shouldn't waste her chance with her father, since she can never have an opportunity herself. Brooke confronts her father, and he finally reveals the truth. Brooke's mother was on drugs again, and her drug dealer was in the guest room when they OD'd. To protect their family's image, he hid the body and sent her mother to rehab. However, even with her father's explanation, Brooke feels betrayed and abandoned, and deciding not to forgive him for all of his lies, she walks away. Emma's psychotic episodes continue through the night, but they provide valuable clues. She recalls a heated argument between her parents on the night her father left. She runs into her father and tells him what she remembers from that night he left. He didn't want her. He explains that wasn't the reason, and to look around for the truth. She finally focused on the pediatric ward and realized she had hallucinated seeing her father. With Audrey's footage from the hospital, Emma spots an ultrasound of a baby. Meanwhile, Noah and Audrey investigate Mr. Branson's classroom, finding a knife hidden behind a speaker and also discovering his true identity as Seth Palmer. With all this information, they take it to Sheriff Hudson, and Noah explains that Seth Palmer was involved with a 17-year-old girl who ended up dead, and he was a suspect until he disappeared. Now he's here, teaching at Lakewood as Mr. Branson. Hudson wonders how they stumble on all of this when they explain the malware, which is tied to Nina's videos, and how he was gone during the bowling alley incident. This leads to an all-out manhunt for Mr. Branson. Unaware of the recent revelations, Brooke seeks solace with Mr. Branson in the auditorium to escape the chaos surrounding her father. At the hospital, Emma confronts her mother about the ultrasound, learning that it was, in fact, her own from when she was 16 years old. She reveals that Emma's dad cheated on her, leaving her hurt and angry, and Brandon drove her home. With him being so kind, they ended up together that night. She put the baby up for a closed adoption. She doesn't even know if the baby was a boy or a girl. She tried really hard to start a new life and forget her past. Emma speculates about the possibility of Brandon James's child being back in town. During a passionate moment, Mr. Branson hears something and leaves the room to investigate. The atmosphere turns eerie as the lights go out and a spotlight shines on Brooke. The killer chases after her, managing to slash her arm before she manages to escape. As Brooke flees, Mr. Branson catches her and acts surprised by the situation, saying he was locked out and had to go around. The police arrive and swiftly apprehend him. The unexpected turn of events leaves Brooke in a state of utter shock as the cops carry Mr. Branson away. When we resume the story, we find ourselves in a flashback sequence taking place 1 year earlier. A slim figure dressed in all black and wearing a ski mask breaks into Lakewood County's municipal records, specifically targeting the old evidence room. Astonishingly, this intruder knows the safe's code, effortlessly gaining access and stealing the infamous Brandon James mask. Fast forward to the present, and the town of Lakewood is bustling with Halloween decorations. Although Mr. Branson remains in custody, asserting his innocence, he expresses ignorance about the knife stained with Will's blood. Sheriff Hudson confronts him with a slew of incriminating evidence, including malware, a name change, and his presence out of town during the murders. To add to the pressure, the sheriff reveals knowledge of Olivia Fenley's murder, a student highly valued by Mr. Branson, which occurred shortly before he disappeared. Seeking legal representation, Mr. Branson demands a lawyer without delay. Emma and Brooke are driving somewhere, with Brooke persistently trying to convince Emma that Mr. Branson is not the killer. Emma, however, refuses to entertain such notions, launching into a tirade about how everyone around her is deceitful and asserting that Mr. Branson is an entirely different person altogether. Meanwhile, Sheriff Hudson holds a press conference where Piper, as always, is present. The sheriff announces that trick-or-treating must end before sundown. Masks are prohibited this year, and the proceeds from the school dance will support the families of the victims. Piper expresses to Sheriff Hudson that if Mr. Branson isn't the killer, then the dance would be the perfect place for the killer to attack. But Hudson disproves her claims, saying it would be safer for the kids to be in one spot. In the meantime, Brooke is moving in with Jake. Despite being 17 years old, she cannot live alone due to her father's incarceration and her mother's rehabilitation. While settling in, Brooke and Jake compare their matching scars. Before leaving, Jake asks Brooke why she would go to Mr. Branson. She says she felt like she had no one else. Jake chimed in that she has him, and he would kill Mr. Branson if he caught him hurting her. Emma insists on interrogating Mr. Branson, despite Maggie and Sheriff Clark's hesitations. Eventually, they allow Emma to confront him about why he targeted her and her friends. Mr. Branson, exuding a creepy demeanor, maintains his innocence throughout the encounter, getting Emma nowhere. Emma poses the question, "Is it over?" To which he replies, "I guess you'll find out soon enough." While preparing to take a shower, Brooke notices her laptop's webcam turning on. She closes the laptop and puts on a robe, wondering who it could be. Emma finally reveals to Audrey and Noah that her mother had a child with Brandon James, and that this child, who is Mr. Branson, might be responsible for the ongoing murders. Noah draws attention to the fusion of Brandon and son in Branson, reminiscent of a concept from the movie I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. The trio separates yet again, providing ample time for Piper to appear suddenly and inform Emma that she has tracked down Brandon James's mother. Together, Emma and Piper drive to Brandon James's mother's residence, intending to interrogate her despite her senility and incoherent ramblings. Immediately recognizing Emma as Maggie's offspring, she delves into memories of Brandon being shot by the police after committing the murders. She also reveals that Brandon's son, identified as Seth, Mr. Branson, visited her the day before, seeking information about his father and family history. After dropping Emma off at home, Piper departs, and Kieran watches Emma arrive home. Kieran and Emma end up getting back together and making plans to go to the Halloween dance and have dinner together with their parents. Meanwhile, Audrey tells Noah about when she was working on Rachel's documentary. When she looked for Rachel's footage, since she's always filming, for some reason it was all deleted from her computer, but Audrey was able to get the footage from her cloud account. Audrey thinks maybe they can find some footage of Mr. Branson to prove he's guilty. Jake checks up on Brooke when she accuses him of peeping on her through her laptop. triggering a heated argument that culminates in Brooke storming out and going back to her home, not wanting to deal with Jake anymore. Sheriff Hudson shares with Maggie that when he analyzed the phone calls made to Emma's phone, he found a location out of town and wants to check it out just in case Mr. Branson is not the culprit. The call locations are scattered, prompting Sheriff Hudson to venture into different areas indicated on the map, seeking witnesses who may have seen Branson. He catches a break, finds a house with the door wide open, and discovers a laptop streaming live webcam feeds all over Lakewood, undoubtedly the killer's lair. As he investigates a noise, gun in hand, the killer sneaks up from behind and knocks him unconscious. Later that night, as Emma is putting the finishing touches on her costume, Brooke calls her and tells her she's throwing a party at her place and bringing back the old Brooke. Emma said she would drop by after the dance. While reviewing some of Rachel's footage, Noah and Audrey stumble upon a clip showing Kieran and Nina leaving a bar together. Outside the dance, we see Jake using the spy program on his phone, trying to find Brooke with it. As the high school Halloween dance is going on, Maggie, acting as a chaperone, tells Emma she can't get a hold of Hudson, while Emma tells her she can't get a hold of Kieran either. Audrey tells Noah she's going to tell Emma about Kieran possibly being the killer, but Noah retorts that it's Mr. Branson, but Audrey brings up that he was with Nina, who died. Then he saw Rachel filming him, then she died, also with his parents dying, and his obsession with Emma points to him possibly being the killer. As she makes a convincing case, Kieran finally walks into the dance towards Emma. Emma and Kieran attend as Mia and Vincent from Pulp Fiction and perform a reenactment of the iconic dance scene. Following their dance, Kieran volunteers to fetch drinks for them. Seizing the opportunity, Audrey decides to reveal the footage of Kieran and Nina to Emma, expressing her concerns about trusting him. Just as Kieran returns with the drinks, he witnesses the tense atmosphere, and Audrey promptly leaves. Emma calmly confronts Kieran about the footage, seeking clarification. Kieran explains that he merely gave Nina a ride home from the bar, because she was heavily intoxicated. Despite this explanation, Emma remains unsettled and persistent in her questioning. Kieran grows defensive and retorts, "He's in a jail cell, and he's still beating you," before leaving the dance. Audrey comes back to saying Kieran left because he's guilty, and Emma fiercely defends Kieran, expressing disbelief that he could be the one who killed Nina, just as she didn't believe Audrey was involved. The revelation leads to a heated argument, causing Audrey to leave the dance and head towards Brooke's house to crash her party. Piper unexpectedly reappears and informs Emma that she revisited Brandon James's mother. She showed Brandon's mother pictures from the vigil and pointed directly at Kieran, identifying him as the individual who had visited her and claiming to be Brandon's son. As Piper asks where Kieran is now, Emma informs her that he just left when, suddenly, the room plunges into darkness as the power abruptly cuts out. A moment later, the lights flicker back on, illuminating a horrifying scene on the overhead projector, a live feed showcasing Sheriff Hudson, bound to a tree and bleeding profusely. The shocking sight sends a wave of terror through everyone attending the Halloween dance. Simultaneously, chaos ensues at the police station. There's blood all over the jail cell with a lifeless guard, and Mr. Branson is nowhere to be found. Maggie hurries to the police station, suspecting that the crime scene was staged. Piper delivers a warning to Emma, urging her to trust no one. Unfazed by Emma's call, Kieran loads his gun while Emma leaves him a message that his dad is in danger. Noah expresses concern about Audrey's since he's unable to reach her, realizing that everyone at Brooke's party might be clueless about the situation. Emma attempts to contact Brooke, but the messages aren't getting through. The killer calls Emma, announcing the grand finale will be a bloodbath, and to even have a chance at saving Sheriff Hudson, Emma must piece together the clues as the killer appears on the live stream. Emma tells a cop she needs to go to the police station in order to save Hudson's life. Maggie just finished up her crime scene pictures when Emma arrived. Emma shares with her mother how the killer left a clue on Will's body, implying a similar clue may be here. Maggie unearths a heart-shaped necklace from the latest victim's mouth, leading them to realize that the killer wants them to revisit the spot where Brandon hid gifts for Maggie, the tree between their houses. Brooke tries to reach Emma again when someone scares her with the Brandon James mask, leaving her angry. Brooke and Audrey bond over their shared loneliness. Brooke expresses her frustration with Jake's foolishness, while Audrey laments Emma's lack of faith in her. Audrey firmly believes Kieran could be the killer, but Emma refuses to consider the possibility. Jake arrives at the party with his date, attempting to make Brooke jealous. Maggie and Emma arrive and momentarily feel hopeful as they find Sheriff Hudson still alive. Maggie and a few officers help untie Hudson, but when Maggie cuts the rope around his stomach, Hudson's intestines spill out on Maggie's hands, causing his death. Maggie is blaming herself for not realizing how bad his injuries were, and Emma tells her the EMTs said he would have died anyway. Maggie realized the killer kept him alive just enough, knowing she would be what finally killed him. Piper shows up and offers assistance to Emma. who informs her about their inability to reach their friends at Brooke's place. Piper volunteers to go there to warn them as Emma returns to the police station. Jake continues to flirt with his date in front of Brooke, attempting to evoke her jealousy. Brooke decides to teach him a lesson and kisses a random partygoer and offers to get them wine, making Jake upset, and he ends up following her inside. Noah discovers that the malware can block incoming calls and messages, and it originates from Brooke's house, indicating the presence of the killer. Noah advises Emma to inform the police, but she receives a message from the killer, threatening her friends' lives if she informs the police in any way. Emma instructs Noah to pick her up as they head to Brooke's house. Noah playfully labels Emma as the final girl who survives, while he sees himself as the sidekick who is fated to perish. Emma assures him that he won't die, and together, they will change the ending of their story. Jake startles Brooke, but comes to apologize for his behavior, and she expresses regret for accusing him of spying on her. Jake admits he did spy on her, but claims he deleted the malware, which someone re-uploaded. Brooke nearly forgives him until he adds that he was hoping to see her naked, leading her to kick him out. Jake's date enters the pool bathroom in search of him, but discovers a partygoer with a slit throat, causing panic among the guests. Audrey rushes to investigate and is ambushed by the killer. Emerging from the wine cellar with more alcohol, Brooke finds out everyone has vanished from her party. She heads back inside her home, and Mr. Branson appears, pleading to be let in, telling Brooke he's been set up. The killer freed him to make him look guilty, and he has nowhere to go. Ignoring his pleas, Brooke locks him out, and the lights outside suddenly go dark around Mr. Branson. When the lights come back on, she finds the killer standing at her door. Brooke manages to escape the killer's clutches, but makes the foolish decision to hide in a freezer. The killer locks her inside, tips it over, and proceeds to attack her. Although she remains alive, the killer activates the freezer and leaves the room. Noah and Emma arrive to find Piper's blood-soaked Jeep, along with her glasses and phone, discarded on the ground. As they approach the house, Kieran appears with his gun drawn, but lowers it upon spotting Emma. Both Noah and Emma remain skeptical about whether they can trust Kieran. Kieran mentions that Emma sent him a message to meet at Brooke's house, but Emma states she didn't send him anything. Emma suspects that Kieran may have intended to harm Piper due to her accusation that he is Brandon's son. Kieran assures Emma that he only has one father and can provide proof that it's Hudson. Emma realizes that Kieran is unaware of what happened to his father, and upon sharing the news, he offers her his gun as proof of his innocence. Emma, Kieran, and Noah enter Brooke's home. As they split up, Noah checks the pool area, where he discovers Audrey's bag and her camera, fearing the worst. Emma and Kieran encounter Jake, who explains that after his talk with Brooke, he went for a walk and returned to an empty house with no sign of her. Upon hearing banging noises, they search the garage and hear Brooke, and Jake saves her from the freezer. Noah encounters what appears to be blood in the pool bathroom, hoping it's just spilled wine. As he spots the dead body in the bathroom, Audrey shows up behind Noah, scaring him. Audrey tells Noah she's confused about her own survival as she blacked out after her attack, and everyone else arrives to count how lucky they are to be alive. Brooke mentions that she needs medical treatment, and the landline in her house should work to call for help. Emma offers to call her mom to get help, and Kieran goes to get a first aid kit, leaving his gun with Noah, but Audrey seizes the gun from him. Emma goes to the landline in Brooke's house when the killer calls. Emma confronts the killer, but he reveals that the final act will occur where it all began, hinting at where Brandon James died, the docks where he was shot. The killer also reveals that he already has Maggie waiting for her. The killer also warns Emma to go alone, or else she will die. Emma heads out, taking a knife with her. As Emma arrives, she takes the tape off her mom's mouth and starts untying her hands as the killer approaches. The killer unveils their true identity. It was Piper this whole time. She reveals herself to be Emma's half-sister and daughter of Brandon James. She told how her father trusted Maggie with his life, but all she did was lead him to his death, then hid the truth about her father's innocence, making him out to be a monster all these years, and how Maggie abandoned her child like it was nothing while giving Emma the perfect life. Maggie tried to reason with Piper, but she was bent on revenge. Emma asks Piper why her friends needed to die. Piper admits she did it just to see her suffer, but she mentions how her friends just lied and humiliated her. As they say, she'll never get away with this. Everyone already suspects Mr. Branson, and she already has him tied up. Piper plays out how Maggie and Emma will die at Branson's hands, but Emma gets a fatal stab at him with a knife behind her back. Then she will continue her podcast about everything that transpired there. As Emma attacks, she gets slashed across her stomach. Piper gloats when she's done killing her. She's going to bleed out their mom nice and slow. Maggie manages to break free and tackles Piper. Piper stabs Maggie and goes back after Emma. Emma puts on a decent fight, but Piper is about to kill her, when Audrey shoots Piper, stating bitch talks too much. Although Piper emerges from the water in a typical horror film fashion, Emma swiftly shoots her between the eyes, remarking, "They always come back." As everyone seems fine, including Mr. Branson, Jake and Brooke seem to be a couple now, as Emma apologizes to Kieran for suspecting him. As Noah calls Audrey a hero, Audrey states she just got lucky. She saw Emma heading off in the woods and followed her. Healing from the bloodbath won't be easy, but at least it's finally over. Or so they think. Noah concludes Piper's podcast by stating that even with Piper's confession, it doesn't explain who attacked her and Will in the warehouse. Audrey sifts through a lockbox, retrieving old letters from Piper, maintaining a calm demeanor as Audrey burns the letters and papers she stole a year ago from the police station. Audrey stares at burning evidence as the season ends.